Good day, everyone. Welcome to this technical briefing on the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. Bienvenue à cette séance d'information technique.
Welcome to this technical briefing on the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout.
Dr. Njoo,
Dr. Njoo, please.
Okay, merci, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at today's technical briefing on Canada's COVID-19 vaccine rollout. I'm here with Major General Danny Fortin, Vice President of Operations and Logistics at the Public Health Agency of Canada. We will each provide brief remarks and then open the floor to questions. To assist us in answering your questions, we have with us Dr. Supriya Sharma, Chief Medical Advisor, and Dr. Marc Berthiaume, Director of Medical Science, both from Health Canada. And also joining us is Joël Paquette, Director General responsible for vaccine procurement from Public Services and Procurement Canada. To date, more than 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered in Canada. 3.6% of Canadians have received one dose, and 1.4% have received 2 doses. In the past week, provinces and territories have administered more than 397,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. This is the highest number of vaccines administered in 1 week since vaccination began in mid-December. Since our last technical briefing, Health Canada has authorized the AstraZeneca vaccine. This additional vaccine option enables millions of people in Canada to be protected against COVID-19 faster. The AstraZeneca vaccine is a vaccine with high efficacy. It is safe, and evidence shows it provides protection against very serious disease and death. Health Canada is one of the most rigorous scientific review systems in the world and only approves vaccines that meet its high standards for safety, efficacy, and quality. In addition, Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada's robust and continuous post-market safety surveillance system will capture all reports of adverse events following immunization with authorized vaccines. This system leverages and builds on the trusted infrastructure and systems already in place for monitoring seasonal influenza and other vaccines. Also of note yesterday, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization provided a recommendation that where vaccine supply is limited, jurisdictions can delay administering second doses by up to 4 months. In doing this, they will be able to administer first doses to more people sooner. This recommendation is based on clinical trial reports and emerging real-world evidence from around the world. Data shows that several weeks after being administered, first doses of vaccines provide highly effective protection against symptomatic disease, hospitalization, and death. You have likely noticed that NACI's recommendations are sometimes different, possibly broader or narrower than the conditions of vaccine use that Health Canada has authorized. As the regulator, Health Canada authorizes each vaccine for use in Canada according to factors based on clinical trial evidence, whereas NACI bases its guidance on the available and evolving evidence in a real-world context, including the availability of other vaccines in Canada. What we expect is that NACI recommendations will complement, not mirror, those of Health Canada. NACI will continue to monitor evidence on effectiveness of a delayed second dose and will adjust recommendations as needed. And as announced earlier today, in consultation with our international regulatory partners on the Access Consortium, Health Canada has developed guidance for modifying authorized COVID-19 vaccines in response to new variants, outlining steps to measure protection by looking at the antibodies in the blood following vaccination and eliminating the need for lengthy clinical studies. This guidance will lead to important outcomes. Safe vaccines tailored to emerging variants, manufactured and made ready for use in significantly reduced time. As the vaccine rollout expands within Canadian populations, all of us must continue to do our part to slow the spread of COVID-19 and variants. Even after you receive the vaccine, you could still spread the virus to others. So I urge everyone, even after you get your vaccine, to continue to adhere to public health measures such as social distancing, wearing a mask, and washing your hands frequently. They do make a difference. Thank you. Bonjour à toutes et à tous, et merci de participer.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking part in this technical briefing on the rollout of the COVID vaccine. I'm here with Major General Denis Fortin, Vice President of Operations and Logistics at the Public Health Agency of Canada. We will each provide brief remarks and then open the floor to questions. To assist us in answering your questions, we have with us Dr. Supriya Sharma, Chief Medical Advisor, Dr. Marc Berthiaume, Director of Medical Science, both from Health Canada, and joining us also is Joël Paquette, Director General responsible for vaccine procurement from Public Services and Procurement Canada. To date, more than 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered in Canada. 3.6% of Canadians have received one dose, and 1.4% have received two doses. In the past week, provinces and territories have administered more than 397,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. This is the highest number of vaccines administered in 1 week since vaccination began in mid-December. Since our last technical briefing, Health Canada has authorized the AstraZeneca vaccine. This additional vaccine option enables millions of people in Canada to be protected against COVID-19 faster. The AstraZeneca vaccine is a vaccine with high efficacy. It is safe, and evidence shows that it provides protection against varied serious disease and death. Health Canada has one of the most rigorous scientific review systems in the world and only approves vaccines that meet its high standards for safety, efficacy, and quality. In addition, Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada's robust and continuous post-market safety surveillance system will capture all reports of adverse events following immunization with authorized vaccines. This system leverages and builds on the trusted infrastructure and systems already in place for monitoring seasonal influenza and other vaccines. Also of note, yesterday, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization provided a recommendation that where vaccine supply is limited, jurisdictions can delay administering second doses by up to 4 months. In doing this, they will be able to administer first doses to more people sooner. This recommendation is based on clinical trial reports and emerging real-world evidence from around the world. Data shows that several weeks after being administered, first doses of vaccines provide highly effective protection against symptomatic disease, hospitalization, and death. You have likely noticed that NACI's recommendations are sometimes different, possibly broader or narrower than the conditions of vaccine use that Health Canada has authorized. As the regulator, Health Canada authorizes each vaccine for use in Canada according to factors based on clinical trial evidence, whereas NACI bases its guidance on the available and evolving evidence in a real-world context, including the availability of other vaccines in Canada. What we expect is that NACI recommendations will complement, not mirror, those of Health Canada. NACI will continue to monitor evidence on the effectiveness of a delayed second dose and will adjust recommendations as needed. And as announced earlier today, in consultation with our international regulatory partners on the Access Consortium, Health Canada has developed guidance for modifying authorized COVID-19 vaccines in response to new variants, outlining steps to measure protection by looking at antibodies in the blood following vaccination, and eliminating the need for lengthy clinical studies. This guidance will lead to important outcomes. safe vaccines tailored to emerging variants, manufactured and made ready for use in significantly reduced time. As the vaccine rollout expands within Canadian populations, all of us must continue to do our part to slow the spread of COVID-19 and variants. Even after you receive the vaccine, you could still spread the virus to someone. So I urge everyone, even after you get your vaccine, to continue to adhere to public health measures such as social distancing, wearing a mask, and washing your hands frequently. These do make a difference. I will now invite Major General Fortin to provide comments on vaccine rollout logistics. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good day, everyone. We have distributed nearly 3 million doses of vaccines to provinces and territories to date. Yesterday, Health Canada announced that it has authorized a submission for Pfizer-BioNTech to allow its COVID-19 vaccine to be stored at standard pharmaceutical freezer temperatures for up to 2 weeks instead of ultra-cold conditions. So this change in handling conditions provides our provincial partners with added flexibility for movement and storage of the vaccine. The increased flexibility may enable a wider distribution of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines to vaccination centers where ultra-low temperature freezer infrastructure and reliable access to dry ice are not currently available. New developments such as this provide us with the opportunity to tailor deliveries to meet the unique needs of each region or community. As for vaccine deliveries, we expect to receive shipments of 444,000 each week this month, and that will round out the commitment, Pfizer commitment of 4 million doses to the provinces this quarter. Shipments in the first 2 weeks of April are expected to be around 769,000 per week, and provinces are placing their orders. As for Moderna, we expect receiving our next shipment of 466,000 doses next week. The second shipment will be 846,000 doses, arriving the week of March 22nd. This brings the total doses delivered this quarter to over 2 million. April allocation details for Moderna are not yet available. However, we're working closely with Moderna on ensuring that we have a consistent and adequate supply. And once we have those numbers, they will be communicated. Yesterday, Canada received an initial 500,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured at the Serum Institute of India. The Vaccine National Operations Center is working with provinces to determine a delivery schedule at this time. So the provinces are all interested in receiving this vaccine. We issued allocation tables to provinces, and they will submit their orders shortly. Additional doses and deliveries of those vaccines, those doses are expected to begin early next week. Additional doses will arrive from India in the coming months, as previously announced, with 1 million doses approximately in April and 500,000 expected in May. Those doses will have a longer shelf life. In April, we're anticipating a steep increase in vaccine availability. This includes 23 million doses of both Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna vaccines between April and June, and at least 1.5 million doses of the AstraZeneca Serum Institute of India vaccine arriving by mid-May. More vaccine doses may come online, and we will continue these quantities, communicate these quantities when we have visibility on expected shipments. We continue to enhance province and territories' cold chain capacity and build national resiliency by acquiring a wide range of freezer and enabling equipment. So we're confident we're still well positioned to receive increased shipments of authorized COVID-19 vaccine, and we remain on track to have enough doses available to offer vaccine to every Canadian who wants it by September. So rest assured that more than ever, we are closely coordinating with all stakeholders to ensure that appropriate infrastructure and trained personnel are ready to receive and store vaccines throughout the country, and that we support the best we can provinces and territories in their vaccination plans and the scale up starting next month and beyond.
Good morning, everyone. To date, we have distributed nearly 3 million doses of vaccines to provinces and territories. Yesterday, Health Canada announced that it has authorized a submission from Pfizer-BioNTech to allow its COVID-19 vaccine to be stored at standard freezer temperatures for up to 2 weeks instead of ultra-cold conditions. This change in handling conditions provides our provincial partners with added flexibility for movement and storage of the vaccine. The increased flexibility may enable a wider distribution of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines to vaccination centers where ultra-low temperature freezer infrastructure and reliable access to dry ice are not currently possible. New developments such as this provide us with the opportunity to tailor deliveries to meet the unique needs of each region or community. As for vaccine deliveries, we expect to receive shipments of 444,000 each week for the month of March, for a total of 4 million doses to the provinces this quarter. Shipments in the first 2 weeks of April are expected to be around 769,000 doses per week, and provinces are placing their orders. As for Moderna, we expect receiving our first shipment of 466,000 doses next week. The second shipment will be 846,000 doses, arriving the week of March 22nd. This brings the total doses received this quarter to 2 million doses. April allocation details are not yet available. However, we are working closely with Moderna to ensure a consistent and adequate supply. As soon as we have the numbers for April, we will let you know. Yesterday, Canada received an initial 500,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured at the Serum Institute of India. The National Operations Centre is working with provinces to determine a delivery schedule. The provinces all want to receive this vaccine. We are expecting their orders very soon. Deliveries of doses are expected to start earlier next week. Additional doses will arrive in the coming months, with 1 million doses expected in April and 500,000 expected in May, and these doses will have a longer shelf life. In April, we are anticipating a steep increase in vaccine availability. This includes 23 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna between April and June, and at least 1.5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine arriving in mid-May. More vaccine doses may come online, and we will communicate these quantities when we have the information. We continue to enhance provincial and territorial cold chain capacity and build national resiliency by acquiring a wide range of freezers and supporting equipment. So we're confident that we remain well positioned to receive increased shipments of authorized COVID-19 vaccine. And we remain on track to have enough doses available to vaccinate every Canadian by September. Rest assured, then, that we are closely coordinating with all stakeholders to ensure that appropriate infrastructure and trained personnel are ready to receive and store vaccines, and that we support the best we can the provinces and territories in their vaccination plans and scaling up. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now take your questions. As usual, you can get one question and one follow-up. But please use your phone or a headset rather than your speakerphone so we can hear you properly. Vous pouvez poser vos questions, une question
You
et
can
une question
ask
de
your
suivi
questions,
dans la langue officielle
one
de votre
question
choix.
and a follow-up
Et s'il
in
vous
the
plaît, je vous
language of
demanderai
your
d'utiliser
choice.
votre téléphone
Please
ou un
use your
micro-casque
phone
plutôt
or
qu'un
a
haut-parleur.
headset rather
Ça
than
aidera
a
tout le monde à bien
speakerphone
entendre
so that
votre
everyone
question.
can hear your question well.
À vous la
Thank you.
parole.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. You may cancel your question at any time by pressing star 2. Vous pouvez à tout moment annuler votre question en appuyant sur les touches étoile 2. The first question is from, la première question est de Marie Vastel de Le Devoir. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Good morning. My first question, I'm not sure if it is for Major General Fortin or Dr. Berthiaume. The other day, we were told that you were expecting a decision very soon on the Johnson & Johnson possibilities. Can you tell us when you expect that decision? And can you tell us when the first deliveries might happen once approval happens? Thank you for that question. I will start. This is Dr. Berthiaume. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine should be available in the next few days, so we should have good news on that in the next few days. As far as availability for delivery, I will pass the floor to Major General Fortin. This is Joël Paquette. We will, once the approval is given, we are expecting 1 million doses by September once approval happens through a bilateral agreement. Thank you. But do we have a more specific idea before September when the first doses might arrive in Canada? And the fact that we have this agreement with Johnson & Johnson, which is in the United States, I know right now we can't receive vaccine from them, but do you think that other plants might be freed up to be able to produce the vaccine for us? And can you give me a more specific date for delivery? Well, we're working closely with Johnson & Johnson on a delivery timetable. And once we have the information, we will certainly make it public. But deliveries may start in the second quarter. With respect to the agreement with Merck and deliveries from the United States, we're working with them and with the Johnson & Johnson for vaccines to come to Canada. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from La prochaine question est de Mia Rapson from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hi, I'm just wondering, Major General Fortin, you talked about the provinces putting in their orders for vaccines, and my understanding was that up until now it was generally all distributed by sort of a per capita distribution. Has that changed, and are we now making decisions on that some provinces will get a different, not per capita distributions, or how is this going to work?
Yes, thank you for your question. It's in fact, we agreed, and provinces agreed to a per capita allocation. And I'm talking AstraZeneca and Serum Institute here. Provinces have agreed to a per capita allocation. We endorse this. The territories have decided to opt out because of the variables that they contend with in the north. They have Moderna doses, and they have enough provided this quarter to vaccinate the intended population of 75% of the adult population. So we're in the process now of, in the provinces, having received their allocation. They had the tentative quantity, but now they have a confirmed quantity distributed across the 10 provinces, and they are putting in the orders, identifying the vaccine delivery sites where they want this shipped to. We're coordinating at all levels so that FedEx NMR, our logistics service provider, provides the doses at the right time, right place over the next days.
Okay, I'm still I'm a little confused by the idea that they're putting in orders versus per capita. But my second question is for Dr. Njoo. I asked you this last week, and I'm wondering if there's an update yet on how well we're doing getting that sixth dose from Pfizer, if there's any concerns that that's actually been a problem or if it's been going smoothly.
I'll answer part of the question, but I'll also leave it to Major General Fortin because I know he's working closely from a sort of an operational aspect with our colleagues in the provinces and territories. Certainly to date, we've done the educational seminars, we've done the training. Certainly the sort of the delivery of the low dead volume syringes has certainly supported the provinces, territories in extracting that sixth dose on a sort of consistent basis. We're also reaching out in terms of getting information about their actual experience on the ground in terms of extracting that sixth dose consistently. And certainly from my perspective and information that I have available, I haven't seen any consistent issues or problems or challenges in that regard. But I'll turn it over to Major General Fortin to give further details.
Yeah, so some jurisdictions have reported being able to consistently draw the sixth dose with the equipment that is provided, with the syringe that they have and the techniques that they use. And reports on drawing on vaccine drawings are voluntary from the provinces, but so far no major issues were reported. No major issues on their end. So we continue to monitor that. We've been administering for a couple of weeks now with the sixth dose and the appropriate equipment. So it should be good. Hey, I want to go back to your first question and just want to really clarify this because obviously I didn't make it clear. If we tell a province this is the quantity you expect to have, the province now has to tell us how they want this delivered and where. And that's the process of putting the orders in. And then we'll coordinate with the shipping company, the logistics service provider, and get that to the right place at the right time.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from La prochaine question est de l'INADIB de la presse canadienne. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour.
Good morning. My question is for you, Mr. Major General Fortin. You talked about AstraZeneca and said that all provinces should be able to receive doses. 500,000 doses came yesterday, and a portion of those will be administered before April 2nd. Do you think that some of those 300,000 doses might expire before they can be administered? Thank you. That's an excellent question. The 300,000 doses that expire on April 2nd are being distributed equally. Everyone, all the provinces are receiving 60% of their orders before then. Thank you. And the 200,000 remaining doses, what is their expiry date? It must be after April 2nd, but it must be not too long after that. So my question may be for Dr. Berthiaume. How is it that we have this 6-month window, but they are expiring within 1 month? I'll answer the first part of the question. All vaccines have an expiry date, and that's always the case. So there's no exception here when it comes to COVID-19. 300,000 will expire in early April, and the others by the end of June. I don't know if I can answer the question of the shelf life for the vaccines that you asked after that. Dr. Berthiaume, I will give at least a part of the answer. AstraZeneca has a 6-month shelf life at the proper temperatures, and I can't tell you exactly when the doses were manufactured, but it would be a few months ago. I'm not sure if Ms. Paquette can give us any more information, but of course, vaccines are produced in advance, and then there is the distribution phase. We can certainly say that more are being made, but the ones being distributed are used quite quickly. So I think things should roll out properly. Perhaps Ms. Paquette has something to add. Thank you. Yes, that's quite right. We received the vaccines from the Serum Institute, and we will, here in Canada, be able to use them once they are delivered within the time period that is required.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from La prochaine question est de Justin Ling from Freelance. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm afraid this is a bit of a wonky question. I think it's probably best suited for procurement. It's about the use of 2D barcodes on the shipments and potentially the vials of vaccines we're receiving. It's my understanding that really no point of the supply chain is able to scan those barcodes. Other governments are using those barcodes as a way to reduce waste, to improve efficiencies, and to attract the vaccination effort. Am I right in thinking that neither the federal government nor the provinces have the capability to scan those barcodes? And is there any hope that that capability may at some point be added over the course of the vaccination campaign?
So thank you for the question. I'm not aware of this issue, and we would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah, just I guess a follow-up that might not have an answer to it, but the 2D barcode was a requirement that we put in our Novavax contract that was released not through the Canadian government yesterday. Are you aware of us including that requirement in any of our other contracts?
Again, I am not able to disclose that information.
All right. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from La prochaine question est de Mike Lecouteur de Global News. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for taking our questions. I just wanted to ask you, according to some estimates, and the math may be off, but it'll show that we get about 32 million doses of vaccine in Canada by June. So if we include the extra delay between doses that many provinces are seeming to be going with, how significantly, in your estimation, either Dr. Njoo or Major General Fortin, could this change the timeline of having every Canadian vaccinated by September? Could this be much earlier?
It's Dr. Njoo. Maybe I'll start. Yes, certainly. We've had very good active discussions with our counterparts, the chief medical officers of health of the provinces and territories at our special advisory committee, and we've gone through sort of the calculations, the figures, looking at the dose interval, and if it were to be increased based on our anticipated delivery of vaccines in Canada, and looking at obviously the sequencing of the priority populations, what the impact would be in terms of the actual administration of vaccine. And you're right. If you look at it, the timelines would shift, and we would be able to cover the vast majority of the Canadian population, or the same population, in a sort of a advanced timeline, or moving it up by several weeks. So yes, that's sort of the quick answer from a public health perspective. Thanks.
Follow up.
Before I follow up, did Major General Fortin want to weigh in, or?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add to what Dr. Njoo laid out. I think more vaccines early is good news. We'll see how that is processed at all levels in provinces, but you could anticipate that we can meet that target effectively and sooner. But right now, we're planning against September. Canadians who want to have access to vaccine will have received a vaccine. And I think for now, on 4th of March, that's a pretty good target.
So then just as my follow-up, this is more for potentially Dr. Sharma and Dr. Njoo. Do public health officials worry that by following this recommendation to extend the time between the two doses to 4 months, without any real-world evidence, that we could possibly increase vaccine hesitancy because there's no hard science out there to prove that this actually works, and there are already a number of people who are worried about the vaccines?
It's Dr. Njoo. Certainly, I can start. I would question the premise of your question about lack of real-world evidence. That's the whole reason that our National Advisory Committee Immunization made its most recent recommendation with respect to dose interval. I think Dr. Sharma can speak to the fact that the actual approval of the Pfizer-Moderna vaccines was based on clinical trial data, which had certain timeframes involved, and certainly that was the initial sort of recommendation for how the vaccines should be administered with a certain dosing interval. But now, as we're actually accumulating real-world evidence in terms of the experience from multiple countries around the world, the UK, United States, Israel, and so on, and the fact that it's been shown that you get very good protection after the first dose. So that's already established. The other point also is that the second dose, just in terms of general principles of vaccinology and immunology, has shown to sort of boost the sort of the durability or sort of the length of protection. But certainly, based on the experience and the data we have to date that obviously NACI's looked at, there's been no drop off significantly in terms of the protection, the duration of protection. Obviously, we'll have to keep monitoring the data. But based on the real world data and also other considerations, that's what NACI sort of considered in coming up with a recommendation. It's all happening very fast. And before I turn over to Dr. Sharma for any additional comments, I would say that NACI actually met last week, I think it was late last week, to actually look over the data. They actually had presentations from people, I think maybe international, but certainly from Quebec and British Columbia. So we have real world data as well here in Canada. They made their deliberations. They then presented to the Chief Medical Officer of Health at the Special Advisory Committee, even on the weekends. You know, we're working around the clock, and based on the good presentation and the recommendation that they anticipate making publicly, obviously, even after Sunday, it takes a bit of time to go through the process of actually putting forward a sort of the public statement, which came out yesterday. What happened then is that some provinces, based on their logistical issues, the actual having to plan clinical appointments and so on, have come out publicly in terms of moving forward with obviously the good information and evidence that they heard on Sunday. And so you're seeing that played out in real time with various provinces already coming forward with their thinking based on the information and the evidence that the NACI presented on the weekend. So I think I'll leave it at that. And I'm sure Dr. Sharma, if you have any additional comments?
Sure. Thanks, Harold. So your original question in terms of concerns around vaccine confidence and vaccine hesitancy, obviously we're very concerned about that. We want to make sure that people have confidence in the decisions that are being made about vaccines, whether it's at the level of the regulator or broader recommendations from NACI or at the provinces and the territories. And what I would say is that, it's really important that people know that this is going to be changing. Right, we're in this place now. We have multiple vaccines that are authorized. We have huge mass vaccination campaigns that are ongoing around the world. And the responsible thing to do is to make sure that we get all that information and incorporate that into our decision making. So definitely the messaging would be simpler if we had one set of data and we had one message and it never changed. But that's not what science does. So we want to make sure that we get all that information, we apply it appropriately, and then we make those decisions. And, we have to take into consideration not only purely the studies, but what we're getting, as we said, from real world use, what we have from expert opinions, what we know about other vaccines. All of that comes together to provide the recommendations about which vaccines, are best for Canadians and in what intervals. And then we have to continue to evolve those and change those as we get more information.
Yeah, it's Dr. Njoo. Maybe I'll just add on. I think Dr. Sharma and Dr. Bertium are being very sort of modest on behalf of Health Canada. I think if you're looking broadly at the issue of vaccine hesitancy, I think there's multiple aspects that help build Canadians or reinforce Canadians' confidence, I would say, in vaccines in general. First of all, obviously our regulatory system is one of the most stringent in the world. So any vaccine that's approved in Canada has certainly passed the test in terms of both safety and efficacy and quality and so forth. So I think that's step number one. Certainly public messaging, what we're doing with press conferences to show Canadians that science evolves, and we're always there to look at the latest evidence and make sure that we use it to the best advantage to ensure that health and safety of Canadians. Another important thing, I think, is that the Canadians, in terms of vaccine confidence, look to their trusted sources, and we know from surveys and so on that the healthcare providers are their trusted source. It's not that someone's going to come to me personally. I think they would trust probably their family doctor more, who they know for many years. And so part of our job, I think, is to make sure that the frontline healthcare providers have the best tools and information available so that they can confidently explain and have good conversations with their patients to ensure that they make informed choices about getting vaccinated. And of course, we recognize that, we live in the social media world. So I think in terms of engaging with community leaders in certain groups, having them also bring others on board by getting vaccinated, showing the example, maybe putting a clip on YouTube and so on, I think also helps. And I think and the other final part is that I would say that there's also a role for the average Canadian. I think all of us appreciate that there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation out there. And I think we all, individually have a bit of a responsibility not to sort of get sucked in by clickbait and so on, and not to add to the sort of the viral sort of dissemination of things which obviously are not credible in terms of scientific information. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Anne-Caroline Desplanques de Le Journal de Montréal. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour, merci de prendre ma question.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question.
À qui pourrait s'adresser ma question? Peut-être
My question is probably addressed to Major General Fortin, or it's about procurement. Yes, today there was news out of Australia and the European Union. So I'm wondering with what is happening regarding deliveries and blockages and obstacles that we've seen elsewhere. Joël Paquette, thank you for your question. Right now, we are working very closely with our colleagues to ensure delivery from Europe and, if possible, from the United States. We have, to date, managed to receive all of our expected deliveries. Thank you. Am I on? Please go ahead.
Les prochaines doses AstraZeneca doivent provenir des États-Unis.
The next deliveries, or some deliveries, are to come from the United States, and you said in your remarks that you were working with the Americans. Have you received permission from the Biden administration to import vaccines from the U.S.? Thank you. Regarding Johnson & Johnson, we are continuing to discuss these issues with them regarding delivery and distribution. And we are looking still for approval from Health Canada. We will be having discussions on that. We are also holding discussions with our counterparts in the Biden administration to make sure that Canada will continue to receive vaccines from the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. Next question.
Thank you. Merci. Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Tom Perry de CBC News. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Hello, thanks for taking our questions. I'm just wondering if I could get some clarity from Dr. Sharma. When does Health Canada expect a decision on Johnson & Johnson? Is it this week? Is it next week? I guess just what's the latest timeline on that?
Sure. So the review of the Johnson & Johnson submission is going very well. It's progressing, and we're expecting to have that completed and a decision in the next few days. I would say within the next 7 days or so.
Within a week, then, you figure?
That's right.
Okay. And just speaking on timelines, for Dr. Njoo, do you have an estimate for when every Canadian who wants to be vaccinated will get their, at least one shot, will get their first shot? Do you have a timeline for that?
Yeah, at this point, I think, things are moving quickly. And as I indicated earlier, we're having live discussions looking at calculations. I think, the position that our Prime Minister put forward that, every Canadian who wants to be vaccinated will certainly have the opportunity by the end of September. I think that that's still sort of the goal. And if we actually are able to do that earlier based on, getting more vaccines approved, getting greater supply, all the better. But at this point, I think we still have to do our due diligence. And I don't think at this point we'll put forward venture an actual data until we actually have more precision with all of the factors in play.
Thank you. Next question. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Annie Bergeron-Oliver from CTV National News. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hi there. Thank you for taking the question. CTV has learned that about 1,500 doses have been wasted in Ontario since December. I'm wondering how concerning is that to you to hear that 1,500 doses at least, and only in one province, have been wasted, considering the fact that we are actively trying to get as many people, especially vulnerable Canadians, vaccinated as quickly as possible right now?
So this is Major General Fortin. Maybe I can speak to this. Provinces and territories are invited to share with us progress on immunization, as well as any issues with wastage, any issues with administering the 6th dose of Pfizer. The number you're indicating is far higher than the number that we're tracking, so we'll have to look into this. But I can tell you with confidence that the numbers over the 3 million doses that have been brought in country right now are extremely low. Some of the wastage can be explained by at least one failure of a freezer. This is several weeks ago now. This was all easily resolved, and additional shipments were sent to that location once that was repaired. But I am not tracking numbers at that level, so we'll look into this.
Follow-up?
So do you have any numbers in terms of what the estimate of vaccine wastage is across the country? And sort of along the same line, what kind of numbers are you seeing in terms of uptake of the vaccine? I read one study recently that said only about 15% of healthcare workers in long-term care were getting the vaccine. What kind of numbers are you seeing across the country right now in terms of people who are saying no, they do not want one?
Sorry for the delay. I think that's a question that's best answered by my colleagues.
Yeah, it's Dr. Njoo, and like I say, certainly we've had obviously ongoing discussions with the provinces and territories. I'm not sure Major General Fortin and other colleagues what kind of data they're tracking in terms of the actual uptake. Certainly the sense I've gotten, and this more sort of a general sense that our discussions at the Special Advisory Committee is that overall the uptake is good. People are excited, Canadians in general, healthcare workers and so on, that we have a greater number and a choice of vaccines that provinces can use to their best advantage, and the supply is growing in terms of the doses coming into the country. So I don't see that as an issue. What I also see is that it's a bit of a snowball effect. As people see more and more of their, be it colleagues, friends, family, and so on, getting vaccinated, it breeds success. Like people go, oh wow, they got their vaccine. I think I want to get my vaccine too. So I see this as all positive, and I haven't really heard on a consistent basis any issue or problems and challenges as far as quote healthcare workers as you indicating refusing or not wanting to take the vaccine. But we can look further into that, and if there's any other data available, we can certainly pass that on to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from La prochaine question est de Alison Martel de Reuters. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Thank you. What is the current impediment to importing Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses made in the United States to Canada? Is it the executive order that was signed by President Trump last year on vaccine prioritization? Is it something in the U.S. procurement contracts, or is it really up to Johnson & Johnson's leadership alone?
Thanks for the question. This is Joelle Paquette. There is no impediment that we are aware of for them to deliver doses from the U.S. But at the moment, we are still in discussion with Johnson & Johnson to determine where their doses will be coming from and the delivery schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any difference in the situation with AstraZeneca? Is there any impediment there?
There is no difference, and there is no impediment that we are aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the end of our technical briefing. If you have additional questions, please contact the Public Health Agency of Canada at hc.media.sc@canada.ca. C'est la fin de cette séance de briefage technique.
This is the end of our technical briefing today. If you have additional questions, please contact the Public Health Agency of Canada, hc.media.fc@canada.ca. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Merci.